everyone, and welcome to week 2. This week we're going to be looking at Congress and its role in environmental politics and environmental policy making. So when you're ready, you can head on over to Module 2 on Brightspace and get started. The first thing you're generally going to want to do every week is take a look at the weekly summary document and video. And as I explain on our weekly materials pages, you are welcome to use either the video or the document, or both. It's up to you and your learning style how you want to approach that. Now, that weekly summary is going to explain how all our other weekly materials fit together and give you a good overview for the week. That's why I suggest looking at it first. So you'll look at that and probably start taking in some of those weekly materials. And when you feel ready, you can get started on the class discussion. Every week, typically, our class discussion will be based on an activity and the materials. So the activity is going to be a small thing that you have to do, and then you'll relate that to what you're learning this week from our class materials. So this week, the activity is to find out who your Congress member is. And I give you some information on how to do that. You're not just sort of left to your own devices. I give you a link that's going to help you find your Congress member and find their website. Because once you find out who represents you, you need to find out a little bit about them too. And then, once you found that information out, you're going to answer a question that I pose of you. That question is, imagine a specific environmental policy, and I'll tell you what that is in the discussion prompt. Imagine that policy, and imagine your Congress member wants to pass that policy. Even if you don't think they would want to do it in real life, just pretend that they do want to for the purposes of this assignment. So they want to pass this policy. Will they have the power in Congress to do so? Now, I give a little sample answer for this. So if you want to check out the weekly announcement, it's in there. And it can serve as a model for you if you want. It does not have to be the model for you. You are welcome to approach this a different way, but it's one way of showing how you can take that information you learned about your Congress member and tie it to our weekly materials to answer that big discussion question of, would they be able to pass this law based on their position in the chamber? So basically based on their committee assignments and their party membership and how those structures function within Congress. And that's what we're learning about this week. How all that works together to allow them to pass an environmental policy. Or maybe doesn't work to allow them to pass that. So that's what you'll be tackling this week for the discussion and what you'll be discussing with your classmates, because you'll post that initial post no later than Thursday, and then you reply to 2 classmates no later than Sunday. So that will be our big discussion this week. There's also going to be extra credit this week. Last week you answered an anonymous survey, and in there I asked you some questions about classroom inclusion, and this week you're going to have an extra credit assignment based on that. So it's basically to think about barriers to inclusion and how we can overcome them. Many of you were able to identify barriers to inclusion in the survey. If you weren't, now's a great time to think about, why didn't you see those barriers? And now that you know they exist, how can you help reduce them? And of course, if you did see those barriers, or maybe you've encountered those barriers, how can you, your classmates, and me help reduce them? So looking ahead, next week, we will have the first piece of our portfolio project to work on. So don't worry about that too much this week. I just wanted to give you sort of a forward-looking view of that. So again, for this week, you have to look at our weekly materials, participate in weekly discussion with your initial post and your 2 replies, and if you want, do the extra credit. If you don't do the extra credit, it won't count against you, and if you only get partial credit on the extra credit, it's still just raw points added to your grade. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you have the time and desire, because it can never hurt you, it can only help. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts about Congress and its internal structures, your Congress member, and environmental lawmaking on our discussion board this week.